Hello to episode 314 of Love at First Scent with me, Persolaise, live on YouTube as always. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do consider doing so. And whether you're watching the live or the recording, you're very welcome. Please feel free to leave a comment, ask a question. I usually get round to pretty much all of them in due course, except when, which is what happened most recently for some weird reason, YouTube decides to hide some of them from me. So if in the last few days, if I have missed some of your comments, I apologize, but I discovered a whole load that YouTube had decided to file under spam for some reason. But anyway, less of that. So first comment is a wave that goes to Aileen Online Beauty, and Andy says, I've actually caught the start. Yes, you have. Incredible. That never happens. Hello from Fife in Scotland. And Sue says, hello, spoiled with 3 lives today. Well, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed them. What are we doing in this one? A briefish episode, very similar to what we did last time, actually. We're going to talk about a brand new release from a brand, but also take the opportunity to revisit one of their classics, which I don't think we've ever talked about on this channel before. So Miller Harris is the brand in question. Their latest release is called Myrica Muse, which is a kind of fruity, sweet number composed by Emily Bouge. But I would also, when I've talked about this, like to spend a few moments talking about this one, which I would imagine has a lot of fans. L'Air De Rien, says Ilias. There you go. So Myrica Muse was just released very, very, very recently in the UK. As I say, it was composed by Emily Bouge, and I have already smelt it. I had a quick sniff. I did not know what a Myrica is when I smelt this perfume, or a Myrica could be, but basically it is a plant that produces a little red fruit that kind of look a little bit like a cross between a strawberry and a lychee, and apparently they have a kind of sweet tart taste, and so this is the idea for this particular perfume, to do something that is a little bit gourmand, a little bit sweet, but also has a kind of sharp fizz to it. So I've just sprayed some from the vial, and yeah, if that was their intention, which I know that it was, then they have succeeded. But I'm not sure that this kind of brings anything particularly new to the sugary, sweet, and yet slightly tart category. Maybe it was a gap in Miller Harris's own portfolio, and I suppose it, at least at first sniff on the blotter, it's kind of gratifying and commendable that it doesn't immediately hit you over the head with the sweetness. So this isn't, this isn't Miller Harris's Angel, okay? You don't smell this and you think, oh my goodness, why couldn't they have held back with the caramel? It's not like that at all. But it is essentially a sweet, fruity floral. And once that kind of tart, sharp fizz of the beginning dies away, it does become sweeter and sweeter. Although as I'm smelling it now, there's a kind of interesting green note to it as well. So it is by no means terrible, okay? It doesn't kind of make you groan and think, oh my God, here we go again. But it could have been a touch more interesting. I have a very, very brief press blurb. The whole thing is that this is meant to be the scent of just having a moment by yourself. A stolen pause enjoyed alone. Quiet, elegant, and in reflection for the joy to come. Fragrant red fruits of bayberry and strawberry brighten a composition of tender rose and sensual rum. They say that it's in the fruity floral musk category. Their top notes, they quote, are strawberry, bayberry, pink pepper, and tangerine. There is a kind of pepperiness to it as well. Heart notes of jasmine, lily of the valley, upcycled patchouli, and upcycled rose, as well as rum. And then lasting impressions, which is an interesting way of saying base notes, are benzoin, musk, amber, sandalwood, and vanilla. And a little bit of a blurb, that because they're obviously quite proud of this upcycled technique that they've used for this one. Miller Harris is committed to using natural materials while pushing creative boundaries. Myrica Muse Eau de Parfum is no exception, with an abundance of rich natural materials used throughout the fragrance. A new initiative at Miller Harris, the Upcycled Initiative, sees them working with their partners to explore how we, they say, can maintain our finest naturals first approach, along with a commitment to reduced waste initiatives. This efficient use of our resources, including the reuse of plant raw materials, is one of the most important and exciting focuses for us. Through the re-extraction of processed natural raw materials, we can now create new ingredients with unique olfactive profiles that are still 100% natural. And so, as they said, it's the rose and the patchouli that are the upcycled ingredients in this one. They say we reassemble previously used Turkish rose to rebuild a new profile of this flower, which is 100% pure and natural. And the patchouli, sourced originally from Indonesia, this natural upcycled material is rebuilt from byproducts and parts of the plant otherwise not used by other industries. So there will be lots and lots of people out there, and I think actually probably lots of Miller Harris customers who will see that as a selling point. Marie says, tart fruit fragrances are unfortunately being overdone nowadays. I say unfortunately because it was a style I loved very much, but it seems there are just too many to choose from. Lagondam says, have you reviewed Scherzo? Or it seems very popular. Yeah, I wasn't crazy about that one. That's a little bit like their Halfetti, isn't it? Yes, it's fine. Now, let's just label the blotter. The other thing that is encouraging, I think, about Miller Harris is that they've gone through a bit of a streamline recently. It's never been a brand that I've massively loved. I think maybe I've owned one Miller Harris over the years. It wasn't a brand that I particularly gravitated towards. I think maybe I became aware of them towards the end of Lynn Harris's time there, and so maybe by then things were starting to feel a little bit tired. And then they really had a bit of an identity crisis, releasing some things that were very definitely trying to flirt with the Arabian market, releasing some things that then suddenly decided to be name checking or referencing Graham Greene and Brighton Rock. Then we had the foraging collection. I do remember really enjoying one from the foraging collection, but I forget which one it was. It was the one in the green packaging. Perhaps it was Wonder or so. I can't remember, but that was one of the few that I kept. And at the same time, they also still kept going with some of the original Lynn Harris era perfumes, but it seems they've had a bit of a cull, a bit of a streamline. So if you go to their boutique just off Seven Dials in London, it's got a much cleaner look. They've reduced the line and they've kept certain collections. So I forget what they call the originals, but they have a few of the originals there. They have a few of the sort of more Arabic style ones in the opaque bottles. They've got the super brightly colored bottles. Myrica Muse goes into that category. And I wanted to revisit L'Air De Rien, which was one of the Lynn Harris ones. It came out in 2006. Created in collaboration with Jane Birkin, and I resmelt it. I smelt it, and I was quite pleased that it's still there, because even though apparently it's not a massive seller for them, it has got a very hardcore, loyal following. May not be a huge one, but a very hardcore one, and so they keep making it. But I think they have this idea now where they sort of make a certain number of bottles every year and they sell those. And when those sell out, they wait until the next year to make some more. And I smelled the current formulation. And it had been ages. It had been a very long time since I'd smelled L'Air De Rien, but I was just reminded of how fantastically odd and weird it is. And I thought, well, hats off to any brand for nowadays still pushing something that is as strange as this is. So I've just sprayed some from this new bottle. It's just so unique, says Ilias, that warm, fuzzy, almost furry. I mean, completely unusual. Yeah, and I love it when a scent is difficult to describe, because that when it's difficult to describe, it is doing something that maybe you don't come across very often, or maybe that you haven't even come across ever before, because it doesn't have a definite reference point. It hints at various things. So what does this hint at? I mean, I get a lot of pencil eraser, like a pencil rubber type smell, which is an effect that you do get fairly often when you mix orange blossom with resins and balsam. So orange blossom and labdanum, similar kind of effect in Ta Libre d'Orange's Divine Enfant. It kind of makes it, old books, says Aileen online, yeah, that completely that kind of feel. There's something really just sort of dirty, almost overly dirty, almost scandalously dirty, but it stays just on the right side of scandalousness. And I suppose that's meant to be an evocation of the 60s. It's lots and lots of hints of lots of different things without completely putting its eggs into one basket, which I guess is a different way of saying that it is quite abstract. And we've said on this channel before that we miss properly abstract compositions. We miss those compositions that perplex us. So yes, as I said, orange blossom, cedar, maybe incense, pencil shavings, labdanum, something very, very definitely leathery, sort of maybe like well-used leather handbag. Dusty, somebody's saying, and yet it also seems to be much greater than the sum of those parts. I am not overly familiar with Jane Birkin's oeuvre, but if she's meant to sort of represent the spirit of the 60s, then yes, I suppose it's got something. I suppose it's got something that's carefree, joie de vivre, and yet also grounded. It's something very kind of natural about it. It's like if an advert for Timotei shampoo decided to get a little bit dirty. Okay, so it's got that kind of clean, beautiful, straight, golden hair, and yet there's dust here. Okay, there's experience, there's life, which I think is what makes it fascinating. To me, it's musky and animalic in a sense that I'm smelling a cat's fur, says Elias. Yes, totally. And I suppose actually now that you're saying that, it's making me think that a kind of close cousin of it is L'Artisan Parfumeur's Zing, right? Except that Zing is maybe more overtly leathery, whereas this is more intimate. It's very quiet, and I think the whole point of it is that it's meant to be quiet. Is it Je t'aime in a bottle, says Gavin? Thank goodness, no. I'm so sad Zing is gone, says DJ. I know. I treasure my bottle, and my bottle isn't even a particularly old bottle. Cat C says, someone told me that this has similarities to Misia from Chanel. No, but that's just like such a strong retro violet. But it sounds like it can't be given your description. No, I'm not thinking of Misia at all. Sorry. So let's label it, because I'll be very fascinated to see how it does over time. We'll do a blotter update for this one as well. So Myrica Muse, it'll probably do well with people who just walk into the shop and see the bright red stroke pink bottle and think, oh gosh, that looks attractive. Let me give that a sniff. But it's not going to change the world, and I think as a kind of holding pattern, Miller Harris, it's fine, but they probably need to give us something a little bit more interesting than that before too long. But at least they do still have L'Air De Rien. Yes, old books and pencils and pencil eraser and the dust of the past, and yet it's a past that isn't entirely out of reach. It's really, really well done, really, really beautiful, and I'm glad to now add it to my collection. So that brings us to the end, not just of this episode, but all three of today's episodes, our little extended Love at First Scent session. Thank you very much for watching. As I say, always feel free to leave a comment and ask a question. I will try to get round to them as quickly as possible. But until the next time, be good, and I hope to see you soon. Take care now. Bye.